welcome to the stage, without further ado, Mr. Scott Hanselman.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. 800 years. I'm old, is what that introduction said. Thank you all for hanging out with me today. Let's take a look at my slides and see if we can make this happen. This is pretty interesting, huh? The silent disco here. So already I felt like my slides were not, kind of nice enough. Everyone's had such beautiful slides. Bria's slides took it to the next level. So I got some nice fonts. Just gotta take it up a little bit. And then I kind of said, well, I need some like evocative stock photography to like show you what like a real developer's desk looks like. So I'm gonna go and make that happen. But then I started to think like, does that what your desk looks like? Is that what a real developer's desk looks like? No, a real developer's desk looks slightly different. But then I started realizing I'm using words like real developer. Who am I to say that this is what your desk should look like? Or that other desk is what your desk should look like? Your desk should look like whatever makes you happy, wherever you're from, whatever the thing that makes you happy looks like, because as soon as I start talking about what a real developer looks like, I'm talking about gatekeeping. I'm talking about how I've put a boundary between tech and you, between your dream and the money. And I want you to win. I want you to get that bag. So I want everybody to feel welcome in tech. So we're going to talk about attitude and style. Thank you, I appreciate you. So many, many years ago, when you would get like a religious book like the Bible or anything like that, there was this priesthood, and the priests knew how to read. And the priests would be the people that would tell the people who couldn't read what was in the book. And whenever anybody wanted to look at the book, they would say, don't look, you can just stay a hand's length away from that. Tech has been like that for a long time. We've had a situation where there are those who know and then there are those who don't. There's computer people and there's not computer people. And in doing that, in creating that caste system, we're starting to make people feel bad about their relationship with computers. Anybody go to their family Thanksgiving or their holiday? That's when you run Windows Update on your auntie's PC, make sure that everything's updated and defragged. And then they say, I don't know what I did to it. Why do you think you did anything to it? Why is it your fault that the computer is a problem, that the relationship that we've allowed you to develop with the computer means that you're in trouble because you don't know things? Oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm a programmer. Oh, I don't do technology. Computers break when I touch them. We are setting up people for failure in technology because of the way that we refer to things. And we want people to understand that knowledge is power and it tends to be hoarded. We don't want to hoard power anymore. Gatekeepers are these high-level decision makers that stand in front of you and your thing. It could be a boss. It could be a tutorial that's not written in a way that's accessible to you. It can be anything that stands in your way of getting information and getting communication into your brain. So I want you to be welcomed by tech. One of the ladies from Hidden Figures here, working in tech back in the day, they used to call them computers. That's what they called the people, because they were smarter than everybody else. Now we hear this quote a lot about inclusion. We hear this quote. I don't know what I feel about this quote. It says, diversity is being invited to the party and inclusion is being asked to dance. I mean, okay, that's fun to say. That's cute. But diversity is going to a party. Inclusion is being a member of the party planning committee. Organizing. You know how they always say we want to have a seat at the table? Who built the table? Could we build a different table? Could we change the shape of the table? We don't talk about that. We talk about the word inclusion a lot. But then we start thinking about, they say diversity. You remember your cartoons back in the day? You only get 5, right? Can't have 2 black guys. We already got 1. So that's how many you get on that cartoon. This is called Power Ranger diversity, where it's artificial. It's pie chart diversity because you're trying to make the group of kids look nice, but you're not putting together a system where everyone is included, because inclusion is the opposite of exclusion. So we need to look at systems that actively exclude people and do what we can. Because all the different things that could be preventing someone from being successful, whether it be gender or color or sexual identity, but also how they think, dyslexia, numeristic problems. I happen to be a type 1 diabetic, so I have a number of medical implants and tubes and wires and stuff up and down my body. So I made an avatar for Xbox so other kids could see that when they play Xbox. That's a tiny little piece of inclusion. That's a little tiny piece of representation. I want everybody to feel like they're represented when they're doing these kind of things. But then we hear that word represented. So then we have to talk about underrepresented people. Say, oh, y'all are underrepresented. I'm actually feeling a little underrepresented here. So that must mean that in tech, I'm overrepresented. Why are we got to phrase things as a negative? Like Brian Lyle says, I'm not underrepresented. Y'all are overrepresented. I'm not going to express my existence in the form of a negative. So we have a situation where we have people who we call overrepresented, but then you have old heads like me that are happy to mentor you. You probably have no trouble finding a mentor. A mentor for me for a long time, because I've been in tech for 30 years and I'm old, was me lecturing someone once a week and then patting myself on the back and saying, I'm giving back to the people. Look at me, I'm mentoring the children. But what's wrong with that is I'm just talking to them. I was giving a weekly lecture to someone. We need fewer mentors and we need more sponsors. We need more sponsors to lift people up, to put spotlights on people, to make it so that their work is seen. We need people to lend their privilege. It's cool to see stuff like this, where, Einstein goes to these young folks at HBCUs and talks to them, but what did he do to then lift up their papers that they wrote and move that step forward? So mentorship is just step 0 in the relationship that people have where they're trying to lend their privilege. Because the thing about privilege that I have is I have an unlimited amount of privilege. I'm never going to run out. It's not a gas tank where I'm low on privilege today. I'm feeling a little low on privilege. I can lend it. I can give it away. So in doing that, that can be a retweet. That can be a warm intro. People who have power need to think about that, so that if you are someone who's 5 years in, turn around and help somebody who's 4 years into the business. Okay? The other thing we need to do is stop having this sense of what a professional is. What's a professional? We're all amateurs. Everything that I learned in school 30 years ago, every programming language, every operating system is dead. It's all gone. The only thing I learned in school was how to learn. And that's the thing about tech that they also don't tell people. You don't do a boot camp and then get a job and say, look at me, I secured the bag. It is a lifetime of learning. No other job like tech is going to have you learning a new thing every month. So I hope that you don't think that the end of the boot camp was the end of the whole thing. It is absolutely the beginning. There are no professionals. There are no professionals. A lot of people out there don't know what they're doing. And just to make sure that you're paying attention, I want to make sure that you never forget the time that Kelly Rowland texted Nellie from Excel. She doesn't know. She doesn't know anything about Microsoft Excel, but that's okay. A lot of times people will say the word that they have 20 years experience. I have 30, and I'll use that as a bit of a flex. I got 20 years experience. Bonk, and I'm going to smack you on the head with my 20 years of experience. What you can do is you can ask them, do you have the same year's experience 20 times? Have you been at the same job doing the same thing? Have you been sleeping on the technology? Have you been not staying up to date? So I told you at the beginning when the young lady told me that I had 800 years of experience, it's about 30 actually of April of this year. To be real with you, about 7 of those, I was asleep. I'm not talking about woke, I'm talking about asleep. I was just kind of doing my job. I was kind of dropping tables in the database and messing up production and deploying databases and stuff, but I wasn't really present. So you got to wake up and you got to go, are my skills what they need to be? Do I need to relearn this? Do I know enough about Python or C# or .NET? Maybe I need to refresh that. Having 30 years experience as tech is not a destination. It is a beginning. My family and I recently got our black belts in Taekwondo. Whole family did it at the same time. Took years. Took years. If anybody wants to fight me, I'll be slap fighting because it's the beginning. It's the beginning. The sensei told me he has a 9th Dan. I'm a 1st Dan black belt. We worked on this for 5 years. We did testing. I broke boards. I fought groups of people. I pulled muscles in my hip. It was a mess. We all made it happen at the exact same time. And what happened at the end was he said, now the fun starts. He's been doing Taekwondo for 60 years. I don't know anything. The black belt is the end of your boot camp. It is the end of your degree, and the learning starts right there. This man right here invented the World Wide Web, Tim Berners-Lee. Everybody wants to be a senior engineer. He didn't put senior web developer. You know what he could have done if he really wanted to flex, if he really wanted to stunt, he could have put the. Imagine if someone hands you a business card. Oh, web developer. No, the web developer. I created that. But he doesn't do that because he stays modest, and that's important. He understands that you're never too old to get good advice. So when I say find a mentor, I don't just mean that young people and early in career people need to find a mentor. I mean, I need to find a mentor. I can be both a mentor and a mentee at the same time because you are never too young to share experiences. I'd love to see some folks come out of Render today with new mentorship relationships and new mentees as well, both old and young. It's super important. You got to put that good work out there. You got to put that work out there anywhere with a URL. Let's say afterwards, one of you very nice people comes up and says, "Hey Scott, great talk. Can I send you a question on email?" I mean, you can. I'm not going to write you back. Why not? Because I have a limited number of keystrokes. I need to conserve them. I, in fact, have a finite number of keystrokes left in my hands until I die. You can actually go to a website that I made called keysleft.com. You can put in your age and how fast you type, and I'll tell you how many keystrokes you have left. So if you email me a wonderful question, I'm not going to email you back. But that's disrespectful. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put those keystrokes into a blog post, into a TikTok, into a YouTube, into anywhere with a URL, and I'm going to send you a link, and I'm going to say, "Thank you for that question. Here's the answer, link." Somebody wants to slide into my DMs and have a conversation about tech? No, we're having that conversation outside so it has a URL so that I can share it with other people because that energy needs to be shared. And then I'm going to go to sleep. And 2 people, and then 10 people, and then 100 people are going to visit that website, and those are free keystrokes that I did not have to type that got that information out into the world. Does that make sense? Now, mentors. Mentors are mirrors. Usually you try to find a mentor who's like a version of you in the future that helps you define your dream. But sponsors are where the real money is. Sponsors are spotlights. Sponsors are privilege lenders. And here's the thing that a sponsor can do. Here's the thing that a person with privilege can do. They can create luck. I know I'm lucky. I worked hard to get here. 2 things can be true at the same time. So luck is opportunity plus being prepared. There's all these people out here who are prepared and no opportunity is presenting itself. I can invent opportunity. Oh, you should talk to Anthony. He's working in that space. Oh, you should talk to Kadesha. You should talk to Bria. The warm introduction. If you remember in geometry, the transitive property of friendship, A to B, B to C. If I'm cool with Anthony and Anthony's cool with Kadesha, then I'm cool with Kadesha. Any friend of his is a friend of mine. Now we made a warm introduction. That's how you get the interview. I can't get you the job. I can get you the interview. You can create luck. So we need to be making more luck for people, and we need to realize that sponsorship is a spectrum. There's just mentorship, which is regular lectures from an old person, and then there's strategizing, then connecting. But then there's opportunity giving, and then advocating. Think about this. If you wonder why your things aren't working out for you, who's talking about you when you're not in the room? Can you set up a system by which people will talk about you when you're not in the room and they will be like, "You know, I've been really loving the work that so-and-so has been doing. You should check that out." I can do that an unlimited number of times. A lot of people here can do that. That's advocacy, okay? The other thing that people need to understand with mentors is that it's not forever. It's a relationship. You can break up with your mentor. I broke up with my barber a couple weeks ago. That's why this fade is so kind of messed up. You can break up with these people. Mentor in phases. When you mentor, you don't say, "Can I pick your brain? Can I have a cup of coffee?" No, you cannot pick my brain or have a cup of coffee. What do you want? How can we make it happen? Let's make a plan. Let's make a strategy. Show up with an agenda. Show up with an idea. And let's tear it apart, build it up again, and make it happen. Those mentorship relationships are these 2-way streets, not a scheduled lecture with an old person. Now that may have felt like a lecture. It was a little bit. I hope you know I'm passionate about this. Now I'm going to shift gears a little bit because one of the great parts about being old in tech is having stories. And I want you all to take a picture of that because this is your homework. Because we're going to tell some stories now, and you want to think about what are your stories, because the thing isn't about how you're the best person in Python, how you're the expert on the C# or whatever. The issue is, how did you find your way into tech? That story is unique to you. The debugging stories, the staying up all night trying to fight that bug. Tell those stories so that people in tech know it's okay. If you've been in tech 20, 30 years and you still have imposter syndrome, it's okay. You've got to tell the young people that or they're not going to understand. That's so important. So let's talk a little bit about this. I believe very strongly in being what's called a T-shaped developer. The T is very broad, and then it picks an area and it goes deep, just like the letter T. I think about it like a Swiss Army knife. Swiss Army knife is kind of bad at everything, but it's actually a pretty good knife. It's important to be a good knife. Don't skimp on the basics. A lot of people go and they surf the web and then they press F12 and they go, look, it's the source code of the internet. And I go, oh, you sweet summer child, you don't even know. And then we start digging deep. Sometimes you got to drive stick shift, but I can drive an Uber. Yeah, but drive stick just once so that you can appreciate how hard your Uber driver works. But software is a service, but the blockchain. Yeah, but we put lightning in a rock and made it think. You need to appreciate how magical that is. You don't have to do it all the time. I'm not asking you to go all the way down and build an engine from scratch. Just know that stick shift is a thing so that you can experience that. So let's talk a couple of things about problem solving, layering, composition, and patterns. These are usually the things I talk about when I do stories. Problem solving is my favorite because it's the difference between a junior engineer and a senior engineer. Problem solving is yes, no questions at scale. You know how that senior engineer always solves that problem? They go, boom, it was DNS. It's always DNS because they've seen it before, because they're old. The trick is I want you to be old in tech too. I want you to make it this long so you have these stories to tell. So when I do my lectures at universities or young kids, I did a thing with a bunch of 14-year-old kids and I said, let's do some coding. And they're like, yay, let's do some coding. All right, everybody, let's code. My toaster's broken. Just make it awkward. Got to make it awkward for the children to learn. And they said, well, I thought we were going to learn how to code. And I said, yeah, but I have a problem. You told me you wanted to get into tech to solve problems. Solve this problem. Well, they were like, well, buy a new toaster. Well, that's pretty simplistic thinking, isn't it? I want us to think about the system that the toaster exists within. And these are 14-year-olds I'm talking about, so it's going to take them a minute. So one of them says, well, is the power on? So now we're thinking, okay, good. How am I going to test that? Well, maybe I can plug in something else. Plug a lamp in. Already, think about the distance that we are from toast. I asked for hot bread. And now we're plugging something in to see if the power's there. And then someone else says, well, did it blow a fuse? My parents talk about fuses a lot. Maybe there's no power on at all. And then there was an awkward pause and a young lady who'd been quiet for the whole time suddenly yelled out, do the neighbors have power? I wanted toast, and this young lady sticking her head out the window to see if the lights are on in the neighborhood. That's a programmer. And I haven't even talked about computers or programming languages. Systems thinking is power. It's got nothing to do with for loops, nothing to do with syntax, has everything to do with solving problems like this. Now, of course, at this point, they're 14-year-olds, so the whole thing went off the rails, and they want to know if there was an EMP or some aliens took over or whatever. But the point is that the difference is between early in career and late in career is that early in career, people Google a lot. And they make TikToks about how you can get in tech too. You just Google a lot and you copy paste from Stack Overflow. And that's going to work great until you're 15 years in and you don't know how to drive a stick shift. So you've got to find a balance. I made a list of all the different things that could be wrong with a website just to see if I could. I just wanted to see, like, just without even Googling, could I list all the different things I would check if a website was down? And one of the things that my son said is that it's never twins, because Sherlock Holmes always has this thing where somebody kills their husband and then we say, well, she has an alibi. She was across town. It was twins. It's like, no, man. Was it twins? No, it's never twins. There's stuff in tech that happens just like that, where it's not twins or it's DNS. We know these things because we've been in tech, and the only way that you can know these things is that you stick around for a while. I talk about layering a little bit. Layering is super important. A lot of people here are excited about blockchain and Web3. Make sure that layering is understood, because what's underneath? Layers are lies. The lie underneath is the tech that you don't see. That's an email right there. What's behind it? Name value pairs, just like we saw Angie talk about in her talk. Name value pairs. The whole world's a hash table. That's a forum post. That's an email. Did you know that HTTP forum posts and emails are the same thing? It's just name value pairs. Those kind of things get the neurons of the young people thinking. All these things you probably already know, because all these ideas that you've seen before are all the same. That thing on the right is a record player. It's data encoded in a circle that's picked up with a head. That thing on the left is a hard drive. It's data encoded in a circle with picks up data on a head. Circles and encoded data, 150 years apart, and they still work. They both work exactly the same. The concepts are there. You know this stuff. It's hot as hell up here, by the way, so if you see me close this eye, because sweat has gone into my eye and I'm now blinded on just the left side. Woo, it's hot. Now, I want to talk about one more story and then I'll get out of here because I'm running out of time. This gentleman right here is in a show called Altered Carbon. And he plays an AI where he's a hotel, and he's the AI and he's the hotel. And the good guy runs in and asks the AI for help. And he comes in the form of Edgar Allan Poe. So he's hanging out with the main guy of the story, and he's Edgar Allan Poe. And he's a B-level actor. He's a regular actor. He's a working actor. So I like to tweet regular people on Twitter. I'm like, you're amazing. You're doing a great job. You're killing it in that show before they become famous. Turns out he's in Portland. So I said, we should hang out. You got to shoot your shot, right? If I'm going to have a bromance with this man, it's going to start with me shooting my shot and sliding in the DMs. So turns out he's in Portland. We hang out. We go to tacos and we go to Chipotle, and he's the coolest dude. Guy shows up. You can't really see that picture. He's got an ascot and a vest. That's a choice. I mean, that's a decision. I could go with the ascot. I could go with the vest. But I mean, a puffy vest and an ascot, that's an actor. I love that. So we do a podcast, and it's amazing. And we record this podcast, and I go home and I put the USB into my computer. I'm like, this is amazing. I met an actor. We're going to be best friends. We're going to hang out together. And I go and I put it into Windows Explorer, and this is what I see. It's empty. It's corrupted. I don't know where it is. I don't know what's going to happen. How do I call this man back? Hey, remember that magic that we made? Can we make that magic again? Because I lost it. I'm a computer person, but I lost that file. I can't do that. But I want to know this man because I want to know a famous person. So I go and I start digging. And I notice that the hard drive thinks it's there, but the Explorer thinks it's not there. So I start learning and I start digging. I don't know how to do this. I'm on the side of the road trying to change my tire, and I don't even have a tire. But I'm trying stuff, I'm Googling, and I'm Stack Overflowing because I know that the computer is not lying to me, and I spent 15 hours digging the bytes manually off the USB key, and I found that file, and I published that podcast, and that dude is my friend now, and we text each other Beyonce gifts at least twice a week. Nothing in the computer is hidden from you. We need the people to know that. Don't stay at that one level. I'm going to click through this because none of this blah, 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 animated GIF, blah, 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 typewriter, blah, blah, blah. I'm so glad that you're here. I hope you have a wonderful time at Render. And please follow me everywhere, including TikTok and my Cash App. Thank you.